Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin. You might know me as Caterbug Studios on Instagram and some other platforms. I think I'm Caitlin on Mix, so if you see me posting in there. And I am the resident artist for ArtSnacks Quarterly. I can't remember if I've had either of you in class before, but just to give a little bit of my background, I am a multidisciplinary artist, so I do a little bit of everything. I was an ArtSnacks subscriber before I started working for them, and so I'm kind of like a super fan. And um, yeah, this is our third live stream with uh the winter box. And we got I think everything except the paint pen in the winter box is water soluble, which was perfect and very purposefully done because of the watercolor sketchbook that we got. And one of the things that we got was the Radiant Concentrated Watercolor. And I'm going to be using this more like drawing ink rather than watercolor, although we can certainly use its like uh, watercolor abilities to our advantage. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'll go over some supplies I'm going to be using in case you want to follow along and you want to go grab anything before we get started. So I'm going to be using the sketchbook that came in the box. I have some photo references here of different plants. All of mine have leaves. Um, if you want to wait until I describe a little bit more about what we're doing, you can like Google a photo reference or pull one up on your phone. It doesn't have to be leaves, but I am looking for certain layering, I guess, that happens, like how leaves do. I'm going to be using the watercolor pencils in the box that we got in the box to sketch. But you don't need a watercolor pencil, but it would be helpful to have something to sketch with. I'm going to be using the treacle brush that we got in the box. I have a cup of water here, and then I have the liquid watercolor. I have a pencil sharpener that's also from Faber-Castell for my sketching pencils. And I also just looked up, and this pencil sharpener is in the shop, and it's also on sale. So thought I'd let you know. And then I have a little tray here to put some of the liquid watercolor in. So you can go ahead and change the camera view and we will get started. So today we're going to be learning all about creating depth in um, a drawing using only contour lines. So if you're not familiar with like the term contour. It's going to be like my art term for the day. And it's referring to the outside line of an object. So none of it's like any kind of lines that you would put inside of an object, like to show form, like hash marks or something like that, like cross hashing. So it's not referring to those. Those would be like on the inside. So these are just referring to the outline of what you're drawing. And this is like a really, I don't know, like foundational uh, thing to learn and to look at because it's you don't need to learn how to do shading um, to give the effect of depth in your drawing. So this is my example here, and I have drawn this using, like I flipped my sketchbook open and using it like in a panoramic way to draw this plant. And so what we're going to be practicing is using thicker lines in the foreground and thinner lines as they go back in space to give that illusion of depth. And I do have a couple examples here to show you. I like to draw over and sketch over like my swatch pages. So this is another one I did. So you can really see the leaves look like they're coming towards you. And that is because of that thick line in the front. And you can really start to get the illusion here where the thick line is used on this side of the leaf, but the thin line is used on the other side of the leaf. So even without, like I did fill this in, but it doesn't actually have any shading to show the form. It's just the lines. And so to do this, I'm going to be using the Radiant Concentrated Watercolor, um, more like an ink. And you can see some of, if you missed last live stream, this was the finished product from that. We can go through that a little bit later if you guys want an overview of what we've done so far this quarter. Um, And so first, before we try to draw something from one of our photo references, I just want to practice using the brush and practice using different amounts of pressure to get the line weights that we're looking for. So you can open up to a fresh page, or you can, if you had like a swatch page like this, I have like another one in the back, I think here, you can just practice right on top of it. It's like a really fun way to um, make use of like and like use your whole sketchbook and fill it up. So I just like to draw on top of that if you want to do that. But for now, I'm going to use a fresh page here. And I have this little plastic tray and I'm going to put some in one of these spots here. And you don't need a lot, but you can always add more. I'm not going to be diluting mine at all. So if I need more, I can just add it straight to the tray without worrying about changing the concentration of it. So, um, sorry, let me just scoot over here a little bit. I feel like my camera just got like a little bit dark. Let me adjust that. Okay. So I would first go with your brush and try to create a medium pressure. I feel like it's good to start like at what you think is medium because then you know like, okay, so to do a thicker line, I need to press a little bit harder, and to do a thinner line, I need to press a little bit lighter than like your natural pressure. And if you don't have the treacle brush, I do see that this is a size 4 round brush. And I think any round brush would be good um, for trying to practice with this. Okay, I'm gonna try to do some thicker ones, and I'm trying to load up my brush a little bit more for the thicker ones. Um, and you don't have to worry about doing like a super long stroke. It's okay if you need to go back to your drawing to do more to continue the line. And so now I'm going to try to make some thinner ones. And this brush, you can get pretty wispy lines with it. It definitely is good to practice though to realize how light you actually need to be to get like a super thin line. I feel like you can tell I'm getting quieter as my lines get thinner because it's taking more concentration. All right. So I would fill up a page of this, doing a variation of thin and thick lines. And then I'm just did straight lines on this side. And then on this opposite side, I'm going to practice the same thing with um, kind of moving my brush around, doing like a wiggly line, or you can even practice changing pressure um, during the line as well. can also get a good idea of like how much watercolor your brush can hold.
Hey, Caitlin. It's
Yes.
Sarah jumping in here. We have a
Hmm.
couple other people that have just joined us.
Okay.
So if you can recap what exercise we're doing here.
Yeah,
Well,
no problem. Well, welcome to the live stream. Today we are going to be uh, doing some foundational drawing skills and learning about contour lines, which is the outside line of an object, like when you draw it. So this is a wet page, but here is a drawing of plants that I did, of some leaves. And so the concept we're going to be talking about is drawing that contour line, the outside line of the object. And as the object gets closer to you, the line becomes thicker. And as it moves further away from you, the line will become thinner. And so that creates the illusion of depth in a drawing. And so that is what we're going to be focusing on today. So the first exercise I'm talking to you guys about is just practicing those line weights with the brush that came in the box. And this is the Treacle size 4 round. And so I'm practice making some going like I started with a medium pressure because I think it's easier to kind of figure out where like your natural medium pressure is with the brush and then see basically how much thicker you can make the line just by changing your pressure to a heavier pressure and then creating thinner lines with a lighter pressure. And so all of these lines were made with the size 4 brush that came in the box. And I just did some straight ones, but I wanted to kind of practice moving my brush around a little bit. And for this uh, kind of concept to work out in your drawing, um, you can obviously have like just, you can have 20 different line thicknesses or, with very minor changes between them. But to get the illusion, I would say you really only need 3. And so if you are kind of having trouble finding um, like the thin line weight, or getting it really, really thin, just focus on trying to get like 3 sizes, just like thin, medium, and thick. And that will be plenty just for a simple drawing. So I also, you'll see when we start sketching, I also use my sketch lines to my advantage as well. Um, and we'll go over that in a little bit. So there is some brushwork practice for you, and I'm just gonna write down really quick here. I'm just gonna put like, just so I remember what I was doing. And I'm just gonna write thin, medium, thick, and I'm also gonna write down um, the brush so I remember what brush I was using. So if you like to kind of document uh, kind of what your sketchbook pages, like what you were practicing. I know some people like to like label their swatch pages and stuff. Size 4, and it's a round brush. All right. And this is the sketchbook that came in the ArtSnacks quarterly winter box. That is what I'm using today. I'm trying to remember what I haven't mentioned to the new people. I'm using the brush that came in the box, and what I'm using for like my ink today is the Radiant Concentrated Watercolor. And I have not diluted it at all. I'm just using it straight out of the bottle like a drawing ink. And then I'm also going to be using colored pencils to sketch. You don't have to use, and these are the watercolor ones that came in the box. You don't have to use a watercolored pencils. You can use any pencil, but it would be helpful to have something to sketch with if you're going to be following along. So I'm gonna flip my page here. Stuff in the sketchbook dries really fast. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. Um, so that's ready to flip, and I'm just bending the page a little bit so it's gonna lay nice and flat. And I need to pick out a photo reference to start with. And so what I did, I went to a plant nursery near me and took a bunch of pictures of plants. Um, and so I'm going to pick one out. I think I did this one on the previous page, and this is the same plant from a different angle. So I think I'm going to do that one. And I did change my uh, sketchbook to be a little bit taller. So I'm going to raise this up a bit um, and use this to sketch here. So I'm going to have my picture just like how this one is going like tall, I guess, panoramic. I'm going to do the same thing for this next one. I'm trying to figure out where I want all of my things. Okay. And to sketch, I'm going to be using the magenta colored pencil. Um, because it matches closely with my watercolor. So when I put it over it, it's not going to make like um, a color I don't want. But you could also, if you don't have one that matches completely, I would pick an analogous color, so one that's next to it in uh, on the color wheel. So for this, like you could pick like a red or even a yellow would kind of look kind of interesting. I don't know. You can play around. Blue would be cool. But just I would stay away from like more of a green or something for this because that will more turn into like a brown. So just I guess it's really there's no wrong choice, but just be aware of the if you are choosing a water soluble pencil to sketch with, just be aware that it is going to activate when you use your ink over it. But so for now, I'm just going to be using the one that kind of matches my ink, and this is the magenta one. And I'm going to be sketching out these leaves. And something about this exercise is that you really don't have to be precise about copying your photo reference or your I think it's even better if you can like go outside and look at a plant in person or if you have plants in your house, bring like one over to your desk or something. Drawing from life, I think, is always better than drawing from a picture. Um, so that would be like ideal. And it's not about trying to uh, copy it exactly, but we are going to be using it as a tool just because like I'm not really good at like making up compositions completely in my head. I work better when I can be looking at something. So you're gonna want to look at something that has a lot of depth. So this picture of this plant has leaves that are and pieces of the plant that are closer to me and further away in the distance. And it also has a lot of these leaves are overlapping um, itself. So that's kind of what you're going to want to be looking for to practice this. But really, this concept can be applied to drawing anything, not just plants. I do find that leaves are like particularly good one to practice with. Um, so I would just start at any point in on your photo reference and don't worry about needing to draw the whole thing. Just start anywhere and go from there. So I'm just gonna start drawing. And I'm focusing again on only drawing that contour line around the outside of the leaf. And so in some cases that is going to include, like this one is kind of folded over on itself. So it will include drawing that fold over, but I'm not like shading or filling anything in to show that it's behind that one. It's just the outline of the leaf. And I started with this leaf just in case um, you were trying to follow along exactly with what I'm doing. But feel free to look up a photo reference of a plant, or like I said, pull like a little plant near you. Um, both of those are good options. I think any like I don't know. I'm not a plant person at all. Do not have a green thumb. And I don't know like any names of plants or something. Um, but like any of the like more like tall, grassier looking plants would be really good options for something like this. I think I do know what a spider plant is. Um, so that would be a really good one. Okay, and where it gets really hairy is kind of like in here with all of the overlapping stems. So I'm gonna actually kind of stay away from that right now and just focus on the top portion of the plant and then come back to that. Again, I'm just drawing that outside line. And I am drawing the stem to this one.
Hey everyone, I'm just popping on here while Caitlin is drawing. Feel free to drop any questions or any comments in the chat. I'm here to vocalize them if you have any questions or anything like that. And yeah, we're about a half hour into class, so we've got plenty of time to get your work done.
When there's a bunch of stems like this, just do your best and try to at least I would say if you're gonna omit any of them, just to make sure that you don't put more like, up top than there is down at the bottom and vice versa. Um, and just try to at least continue all of them there. Um, line thickness will still come into play there, but in such a busy area, that's already going to be um, kind of filled with lines anyway, so you won't necessarily be able to tell as much if they're thick or thin. So um, just do your best there. Trying to see which ones I've drawn. So this one, I need to draw this one coming out at a weird angle here. That's kind of far over, but I'm going to start it right here. Like, I guess it's not quite spring yet, but this would be a really lovely uh, lesson to go outside and and do. All right, I'm gonna draw this stem up at the top here. Just draw a line that comes all the way down. Then I'm gonna start. I think I'm gonna omit this leaf right here that's kind of flat, and just draw the ones above it. Okay. And I love drawing something like this where um, you really are like there's sometimes where you plan and plan and make sure that you can fit the whole thing that you're drawing onto a page. And there's other times like this where it's like the ideas that I want it to kind of spill on um to the next page of the sketchbook. And so there's kind of like a freedom in just picking a random spot to start. All right, got that one. And then I might just omit this stem in the back here. I'm just going to move on to another one right here. This is another one that kind of has the folds on it. So I'm drawing that top part uh, and the underneath side of the leaf. And that's going to kind of go off the page there. I feel like this looks a bit funny there. Maybe that's better. Okay, let me see. I should draw this one. Fill in this area over here. Then this one, and then there is like a really big leaf in the back here, but I think I might leave that one out too. I'm gonna look and see. I was like going to look and see if there was another angle of a leaf I wanted to add into the back. Maybe I will. I think maybe I'm gonna try to put this leaf like all the way at the top, but kind of more, it'll be more in the distance. So gonna add this one, take it all the way up. And again, I'm not a plant person, so I don't even know if this is like exactly how if this plant could even grow like this. But we're gonna do it. Um, like I am a plant person in that I love how plants look, but I am just not good at taking care of them. So not a skill of mine. Although I have kept it's nothing super big to brag about, but I have kept an aloe plant alive for almost 3 years now. So it's my one plant mom thing. Okay. So that looks pretty good to me. Certainly enough to work with. And now I'm going to grab some of that liquid watercolor and my brush, and I'm going to start going over these lines. And it can be sometimes difficult to pick a place to start, because you want to make sure that all of your lines are going to be overlapping with the correct thicknesses. So kind of like how we started the exercise of like starting with a medium and then going to thicker and going to thinner. I would also kind of approach your drawing the same way, like start at like a mid ground and then go in and do either the um, you know, thinner or thicker lines after that, so that because it's always easier to um make lines, I guess, thicker, but you can't really go back and make lines thinner after you've already drawn them. So, um, uh, yeah, I would start with that and see how that goes. Um, and then for some of these leaves here, these ones, it's going to be important to show that it's like thin up at this side where it's going to be interacting with this other leaf, but it's also a leaf that's coming towards us. So I'm going to want to make that line a little bit thicker as it comes towards me. Um, so I'm going to start with this line right here. And I'm going to give this about a medium uh, thickness, medium pressure. And I'm going to wipe a little bit of this watercolor off on the edge just so my brush isn't super full, because I want to draw the rest of the leaf behind it, but I want it to be thin because that's going back in space. So I don't want to use the same thickness. So I'm just going to go over this lightly with a thin line in the back. And then similar thing here, except the line's going to change pressure as it comes forward. So kind of thin in the back, and then I'm going to make it a lot thicker up front. Let me see here. I think I'm going to go ahead and make this one pretty thick because it's like in front of all of the other stems here.
Hey, Caitlin,
Hmm.
Sarah, jumping in here real quick. When you're done with this line stroke, can you bring the sketchbook up to the camera so we can just like see a
Yeah.
bit more details?
Would you also, I can also, since I'm done sketching out, I can also just bring the camera down while I'm doing the inking. Would you guys
Oh
like
yeah,
that? Because that would be
yeah.
good.
Let's
Okay.
do that for a little bit so we can,
Yeah.
I think I benefit from seeing a lot of the details. Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Okay, cool.
Okay. Yeah.
So now we
And
can really see what you mean.
I'm gonna also bring my light down a little bit, which I feel like for my face camera, that's not too great, but there we
Nice.
go. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Okay. So I'm making this one pretty thick here. And you can also like, this is one of those things too, like even though we're drawing from a photo reference, or maybe you're drawing from life with a plant in front of you, like, you don't have to have this look exactly like it. Like, nobody else knows what this plant really looked like when I'm done with the drawing. So it's like, it's gonna turn out like looking like a plant. So it's just more important that we're practicing like the correct like depth work in the drawing rather than copying the plant exactly. So you can really choose like uh, if you want to pull this leaf forward more, make it the thickest thing in the drawing, you can choose to do that. And just make sure within your own drawing you're being consistent then that then everything that's behind this leaf is going to have a thinner line. Um, but so there's you can really kind of make up your own rules with it for pushing things in the background, pulling things forward, and creating a balanced composition. Um, and yeah, that's kind of the fun of it. I love using photo references more as like a tool rather than trying to render them exactly. Kind of little heart-shaped leaves for Valentine's Day, I guess. I think also because the ink color I got is pink. It makes me think of that too. So I want to make sure to make this leaf much thinner. And then this one, I'm going to make it medium thickness on this side and thin on the opposite side. And I'm not even going to mess with the stems yet. I'll come back to those. For this one, I'm going to be making this side thicker and this side much thinner. Okay. Maybe I'll address some of the stems right now. Okay, so this one was pretty far forward, so I'm going to do this one first. And then I'm trying to look and see which ones these connect with. Gonna pull this one to be a similar weight. And then I'm gonna start using a lighter pressure for these ones that are behind it. This one, I'm gonna do a super light pressure here. And this one I'll do a little bit thicker. But I might actually leave this one with just the pencil. Because I think I might have that as like my uh thinnest line will be just the pencil. I'm going to see how that looks. I kind of did that here in my example where like this back leaf is only the pencil outline, which I think really pulls it into the back. So I'm going to try that first. Okay, and then this leaf here is still kind of a medium in the midground. And I realize I need to draw this stem here that belongs to this leaf. Trying to do pretty thin lines here for this guy. Okay. And I'm going to start this out with very thick lines here in the front. Oh, I'm almost off the camera there. There we go. Now that I pulled the camera closer, got to be careful that I'm not painting anything off screen. And then as this goes to the back, I'm gonna make a pretty dramatic, like, thick to thin line here. And then same with up at the top. All right. I'm going to return to this leaf. I'm also going to give this stem a very, very uh, thin, thin line. And then for the top of it, I'm going to create like a really thin line going toward the top and kind of just trail off a bit. And I'm not going to fill in the rest of the leaf. I'm going to let the rest of it just be the pencil so that it looks more in the background. And then this was a leaf we kind of made up, so I'm gonna have it get a little bit closer to, I guess, like the viewer at the top, but kind of similar to this one where it's gonna be like half colored pencil, half inked. So I'm gonna let it be real thin here at the top and then trail off. Okay, so I think, everything with watercolor that I want on here. Before I move forward, I do want to just draw the pot at the bottom so that it's like grounded a little bit more. Um, so I'm going to do that really quick here. And I'm also going to be drawing the contour of the pot. So it needs to be thinner than this leaf because this leaf is overlapping with it. But it can get a little bit thicker towards the front. And then I'm going to make it fade off into the pencil line in the back. But I'm going to draw the sides here with some medium lines. So I think that looks nice. So now that we've gotten to this step, um, there's a couple different options. You can do like your drawing can certainly be done as is. Um, but to take it a step further, of like finishing, I have a couple options for you. So one of those would be to use your colored pencils, and you could use the color that you were using to draw already. And you can just fill in the leaves with like a light fill. And I uh, wouldn't do any modeling. That's what it's called when you are showing like 3D forms. That would be like shading. You don't have to do any shading. It would simply be just filling it in with color. So here I didn't do like this leaf isn't darker on the underside than the top. I'm not showing really like where light's coming from in the drawing. I'm just filling it in. So that is one option that you could do, and just do a light fill with those. Or something you can do, this watercolor, even when completely dry, even like after days and days of it being dry, it still can be like slightly activated by the water, and it will definitely vary depending on how much of the pigment you put down and how recently you put down the pigment. Um, but something you can do is go to like your, uh, excuse me, go to your swatch page, and I'll see right now if that works. I'm gonna clean my brush off real quick. My water is a little bit pink though, so let me just clean that off. Um, but when you go to this, it can be lifted. Um, so this was really dry. I did this days ago. And it can be lifted slightly. Obviously, it's not going to lift all the way, um, like when freshly used, but that's something that you can use that to your advantage and then go into your drawing. And instead of filling in with a colored pencil, you can take your wet brush and start to pull from your lines and create a wash onto the leaves. And that is very similar to what I did here. On some of these, I pulled pigment straight from the lines into the leaf. And for other ones, I just diluted some of my watercolor and put it on here. Honestly, my little water cup, I've cleaned it off so much, it's already kind of like a diluted watercolor wash color. So that would actually be pretty nice if your um, paint cup, water cup was clean. You can do something like that. A little does go a long way with the watercolor. So if you're looking for a color difference, it has to be pretty light in comparison. Um, so I think I'm going to just use my pink cup water just to create a light wash inside of these leaves and the stem. And then it will also kind of activate some of this colored pencil, and it will also maybe activate some of the edges of the leaves. And I need to make this focus again down here. Whoop. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to start painting in a very, very light wash. And if I go around these edges, it's going to start to pick up a little bit of pigment from the edges of the leaves. And again, this isn't a necessary step. It's just like one, if you're looking to add more to your drawing, you can go in and fill in. Um, there's some other tricks to showing depth. Line thickness is just one of them. Another one is value. So uh, objects will appear darker the closer they are to you, and like less saturated or lighter um, the further they are away from you. So um, you can also only fill in the leaves that are closest to you in the drawing, or you can make the leaves closer to you much darker than the ones um, in the background. And if you're pulling from the edges, that might just happen naturally since the thicker lines are going to carry more pigment and then therefore be darker and look closer to you. So again, my brush isn't completely clean since my water cup isn't completely clear anymore, but it's not getting mixed with any other color. Um, if you're looking for some homework to do, um, another good way to practice this line thickness would be to use the brush tip of your um, the markers that came in this box and practice doing different weights with different amount of pressure, and then you can uh, do the same technique using those markers. And I really would have used those markers this time to do it, but I've used the markers in every tutorial so far, and I was like, I need to use watercolors. So, but the markers would be a really great way to practice, and it would be another technique using the different weight of lines with your brush nib. Like a felt brush nib is going to feel different than bristles. So, it'd be another technique to practice. I love doing this step because it's like really, I don't know, like therapeutic just to go in and fill in with water, pull the pigment. And if you picked like a really fun uh combination of your sketching pencil and your um ink, that can really come into play here. I think using like sketching in a yellow pencil and then using like uh blue ink would be really fun. Create a nice green. I remember one of the years for Inktober, I got like a fluorescent yellow ink in my box, and one of the markers I got in my box was water soluble, and um, uh, it was like a turquoise, and it made the prettiest green when you mixed them together. So it was so much fun to draw with those together. And I'm just going to do this part really lightly here. I like hardly even have anything on my brush. And I'm just like, my brush is like a little bit wet, so I'm just having it activate that watercolor pencil just a little bit and kind of smearing it around inside. But I don't want it to be like, overpowering and make it then look like it's right next to this leaf. Like this leaf definitely looks like it's behind everything else. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one here. Okay, so that's my first little bit of homework for you would be to uh, try this technique with the markers or any other kind of like brush style marker that you might have. And then another thing would be to once you finish this with like filling in with a color and doing this step, um, then you can go in and try to do a shading and a showing form. And if maybe you are like you're newer to drawing or you've never really been able to shade something um, the way you like, having this like thin thickness line thing really gives you uh, like step up with going in and doing form then. And you really don't have to do much shading then to convince like your drawing to have a bunch of depth and stuff to it. So like it's already giving you clues of like what to make darker, what to make lighter. And your drawing will look so much richer with practicing with line weight and doing some shading. And depending on, I'm checking the clock, because I was like, I could also go in on my finished drawing and show you a little bit of what that would look like, since this one's dry. This one being wet, it's like the watercolor pencil doesn't really like that too much going over it, so I'm not going to show that one. But this is how the drawing is looking. I'm going to zoom you out a little bit so you can see here. And so, yeah, so does it look exactly like my drawing? Like no, it's like photorealistic. No, but like we use this as a tool to tell us where to place our leaves and how to direct them. Um, and I think it was super successful. So I hope this was a like oh, I just noticed this. That got a little blurry there. I'll have to go back over. Um, but yeah, this was super successful in showing how we can use that contour line to our advantage. So again, I guess my main word for you today is contour. Um, and again, that's like the outside line of something. And then the other main word would probably be form, and that's like, or modeling. So when you model something, you're showing its form. So you're trying to make it look 3D. Um, and uh, that is not what we're doing here, but we've achieved a lot of 3 dimensions just by using line weight. And you can really take your drawing even a step further than by showing form. So that can be, that would be like your next step onto here. Um, and I'm gonna see, so I don't know, I can ask you guys, would you rather me do another kind of like quick start to a drawing using like, I have several, like this one has some like cool layering in it. Like, do you want me to start one of these or do you want me to go over something like this with a little bit of shading?
Feel free to drop them in the comments or
Yeah,
you
and we
wanna
can.
vocalize.
I also have some of my things finished from last week if you guys would like to look at some of those too.
Huh.
So just let me know. Okay, we have shading. All right,
Let's save the sketchbook review for the end.
perfect.
Also, in like maybe like 10 more minutes or something, if anybody wants to share, we can open up to show and tell.
Okay, great.
But sounds like shading is the winner.
Great. I think first, before I do shading, I think I'm just I'm gonna go back to my drawing here because I forgot one detail I wanted to do just to finish this one off. And that is I'm gonna add some soil into this, just like using some blue pencil. Just to make it look a little bit more, I guess that might look like water. Whatever. I'm gonna do blue anyway. Let's see. Um, I just wanted this to give it just a little bit more grounding kind of in here. Um, Nothing much. And if you're using watercolor pencil, again, you could use uh, your brush and hit this with some water to make this look a little bit more uh, even. Okay, so all right, done with this one. I'm going to go to, this is my example, and I also didn't add soil into this one. And I was using, this was the picture of the same plant, but from a slightly different angle. So I was more like standing like above the plant, or the other one was kind of like straight from the side. Um, so I kind of have two options here. I can continue to draw and shade with my magenta pencil and keep it all monochromatic. Or I could go in with like a green or a blue, which are it's gonna kind of be more of like a natural shadow color, because it's going to desaturate some of the pigment that I have on here. But I think I'm just gonna stick with the magenta one. And this is again, there's no wrong answer. It's just more like be aware that if you are going to use a different color or add a color into your composition, it's going to visually mix with your other colors on there. Um, so I'm actually just I'm gonna not look at my photo reference for this and just use my clues of layering to how I should shade it. Um, and so first clue I see here is that this leaf is way over this leaf right here. And so I don't want to color this entire leaf. I don't want to shade the entire area. I just kind of want to make a gradient effect from right next to where this leaf is overlapping, and fade off towards this edge. Um, so we want to make it look like this leaf is casting a shadow onto the leaf below it. And I'm holding my pencil. You can kind of see I'm holding it way in the back and just using like small circles to make this area darker. And this is just the style of shading I've picked to do this. You can do any kind of shading you like. You can do hashing or cross hatching, or cross contour, stippling, uh, you name it. I really like using like a since this is a textured paper, doing something with like a cleaner cross hatching would be like the texture is going to show on it. So since I'm using a pencil. Um, and I kind of like doing something like this to my advantage, that this is making it look more textured, like really, kind of, like when something is printed, maybe you guys aren't as familiar, but like when you're printing like a vector image, it can have like a really grainy effect in its shading, and I kind of like mimicking that um, in my drawing sometimes. So okay, so I have shaded that area, keeping the forward part of it lighter. And then my next clue here is that this leaf is on top of this one. So we kind of want to do the same thing here, make this portion darker and fade out as we go out. And I don't know exactly like how close these leaves were together. I could check my photo reference, but really, it doesn't matter too much. So you can just kind of go with what, like, shade until it looks right. I say it's kind of like adding garlic to a meal. Like you don't follow the instructions. You add it garlic until it feels like enough. At least that's how I cook. Until the heart says that's enough. Try to let my lines get really wispy towards the outside edge so that I can always go back and make them darker. But once you have it down, it's going to be harder to make it lighter. So when I'm shading something, I usually just work in layers, going over and over again. And you're just going to make sure you want it to be darkest right along the edge of that object that is on top of it.
Hey Caitlin, it's Sarah.
Mm, Yep.
Jumping in. I was just thinking in my head as I'm watching you, if you weren't interested in drawing plants for this
hmm
practice, what I have done in the past is I've used ribbon um to practice that like line weight and
Yeah.
overlapping. So I'm trying to think of some other things in nature or in the world that you can collect and
Right.
use for this.
You could certainly do like if you're in an area that had like a park and you're not doing like something close up, you could do like a tree line would be good with the trees in front and in back. If you live in an urban area, I think getting to a place where you have a little bit of height and just doing the outside contour of buildings. You don't have to be super um, detailed about it, but just drawing, the buildings closer to you, just the box of it, nothing too crazy, and just making those look um, closer. I'm trying to think what else would be good there. Um, I mean, like you could do it just with really simple still life, just with found objects on your desk, and just set them in front of you at a good distance, but then just put some of the items right up as close as you can, and then just set them in the back. Like if you have the thing that first comes to top of mind for that would be like drawing like spice containers and just grab like 10 of them and put I guess I have garlic on the mind. I must. Okay. But then put like a few in front of you and then a few like in back of those and then a few in back of those and just so you at least you have that like foreground, midground, background and then thick, thin or thick, medium, thin as it goes back. So I think that would be a good option. Um yeah, those are the ones that first come to mind. I really do love drawing ribbon though. Any ribbon's really fun because it like folds over itself in a really fun way. Kind of like when you get to draw like the leaves with this kind of shape where some are in the foreground, some are in the background. It has some really fun things like that. I also really love drawing draped things. That doesn't offer as much with this like depth uh um exercise, but it is another really like I just find drawing stuff that's draped to be really fun. Um, yeah, that's what I can think of off the top of my head. Um, I'm just making sure I'm going through anything that's like behind that's touching something else. I'm like adding a little bit of a shadow underneath it to make it look like it's, kind of more jumping in front of it. So even this stem down at the bottom here, I'm just going to add like a little bit of darkness right on the edge of it so that you can tell that it goes underneath this leaf. Um, and then uh, just like the, sorry, line weight, as we're shading, you don't want to contradict yourself by then like using like a thicker line, um, behind a thin one. You want to try to make your shading get like a little bit darker, like, as like you move back in space there. Like, so this is going to have the most shadow on it. Um, so just be aware of that. But it's tricky. It's a tricky thing to balance because things in the distance are also going to get like less saturated. So it's hard sometimes when you're working just with one color to like, keep that balance in there. So I'm just focusing mostly anything that's touching another object. I want to make sure that it looks shaded compared to the front of it. So this underneath portion, And then like the inside of this leaf should be a little bit darker because it's going to have a shadow cast on it from this side. And probably like the edge of this as well. It's just a little bit here. And I'm going to shade the stem a little bit. I'm going to shade this stem since it's behind everything. And trying to look a few other spots here. This one, but then this leaf is way behind these ones. So I made this one darker in the background so it really pulls this stem forward, but I'm also made sure to make this stem dark at the top so that it pops forward from this leaf. And then I think I'm just going to go and darken up a couple of these stems under here to make them look like they're really underneath all this stuff. But this one's okay since it's kind of jumping forward. And I think I'm just going to leave this one completely unshaded. So it's just like pushing way in the background. Things also, another trick of depth is things will lose detail the further back they go. So that's just another thing you can do to really create that illusion. And then if I wanted to follow my photo reference, that's also another thing I could do is try to look up some of the detail that's on here and add detail in like a couple of the things that are really close. So there's lots of steps you could make to make this look like more finished. Um, and then oh, I wanted to also add the soil into this one too. And I think I'm going to add that with the pencil and I'm just going to try to like make it look really dark. It does kind of have like a rim around the top of this pot. And I'm going to add a little bit of shading around this pot while I'm at it. And see it kind of gets darker on the sides. So that's what I'm showing there. One of my favorite exercises is just expanding off of a contour line exercise and doing cross contour, which isn't it does add some like value and shading to a project, but it's doing like it's adding lines onto an object that aren't necessarily like detail lines, like adding like the vines of the leaf, but you're adding lines that like follow the contour, like the shape of things inside of the item. And I'll have to look up an example for you. Maybe I'll post it in my mix article. Because it's a really fun one to uh to practice as well. Um, but yeah, I'll try to find an example. I know I can find one stowed away somewhere. But if you're curious, you can look up cross contour and there's probably lots of tutorials on that. But it would be a tough one to teach without having this lesson first, because you really kind of have to get this one um, down. Okay, so kind of shaded that pot, and then I'm gonna put the soil in, and I'm gonna make it really, really dark. Like so, I'm gonna go over this first, and then go over it again and press down pretty hard. Like I could also hit it with the watercolor there too. I can't remember looking back at my swatch to see how dark this one gets when gets hit with water before I do that. So that looks like it would be a pretty good option, but I want to make sure there's a lot of pigment on there. Because right now, with just going over with the colored pencil, it's like this is like too much of the same tone as the leaves. Like everything's getting lost down here. So I really want to make sure I can make this a lot darker than the stems. Okay, I'm gonna go in with my brush now and just use it on the colored pencil. And I have this, my brush is not super duper wet because I didn't want this to like spill out anywhere. So just wet enough that you can activate the pigment in the watercolor pencil. And I'm just using really, really light strokes. All right. So you can see that looked a little muddy before I added the water, and now you can see those stems again down there. So there's a nice difference between the dark soil and the stems. But yeah, that is an example of how you can just really like do some light shading to this drawing, and I'll show you the difference. Like this is without any shading, just using line thickness and weight. And then that's with adding a little bit of shading around some of the pieces that are overlapping. Um, and I like both. I do love just the simplicity of doing a drawing with the line weight. Um, did you want me to go through and show a couple of the finished pieces from last week?
I just want to ask real quick if
Uh-huh.
anybody wants to share their work.
Oh yeah.
Feel free to raise a virtual hand or raise a physical hand. You can turn your camera on. Obviously, no pressure. But we definitely encourage everyone to post their creations on the ArtSnacks mix group so we can see what you've made. I feel like at some point we're 3 live streams in now, so it's like, how do we keep it exciting? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's tough. Let's see. I'm in Pacific time, so I was working, doubling instead of doing art, but I love the live stream. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining
Yeah,
us.
thanks so much.
And if you want to watch the live stream again later in the week, you can because it'll be recorded. So you can get some more art making time in. But I do the same thing. Sometimes I just play the live stream and just listen because it's relaxing.
Yeah. When I'm not hosting, I am usually like cooking dinner around this time, and so I love to have a stream going while I'm cooking.
Totally.
Uh,
And then, you make your own art on your own time.
yeah,
Cool. Yeah, let's do like a little recap so far of what we've done with the
great.
product in this box.
Yeah, okay. It's fun having a sketchbook just to be able to flip through everything. Okay, so this is what I ended up doing with the cutout leaves. that I made last time. So these are glued in. Those are like leaves that then I used the uh green colored pencil and marker on. And then I just kind of glued them in like, I don't know, leaves in the wind style. I don't really know what I was doing, but I was just kind of just wanted to dress this page up again. It's one of my swatch pages, and again, a practice for doing this contour line lesson. Um, this was my cutout pages. This was one of my swatch pages, but I like to go over my swatch pages with like other stuff, like how I did this one. So that one's kind of waiting to get covered up. And this has a cutout to the next page. Just so fun. I made a fun little reel and I used a Twilight Zone uh sound for that. Um, our first lesson we did was on how to make these galaxies using the pencils and the markers. It's really fun. And last week was all about cutouts. So we did this cutout. I showed as an example. And this was the other cutout that I worked on. I have little stems added to the leaves on there. And then the next page is a landscape using mostly marker and a little bit. I went back and added some of the pencil to darken that area up because it looked like it needed something in there. So that one looked. This one I didn't have done during class, so that's kind of how Polaroid pictures and then a Mars landscape is what I'm calling that one. And we have the example that I had, practicing with the brush, the one we finished today. Then I have a bunch of blank space, and then in the back here I have more practice using all the products. And then this was some other ones from that first live stream, uh, doing the colorful galaxies and kind of like Northern Lights inspired. And then this was a mess up page that I went back and made better with a cutout. So get ready for this. Whoop. Oh man, how fun is that? So that was really fun. I worked on that this week. But I know, and then I was really disappointed with like it was specifically this page just turned out awful and then whoops, made it better with some stars. And that is it. That's all I have in here so far.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah. And
It
this
looks,
was made using the markers and I put like pink on this side and purple on this side, and then the pink was still wet, and I just closed it up and like let it transfer a little bit to the side, and that's kind of how I got that like
that's
texture in there.
such a good
So
idea.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
And the stars are made with the white gel pen.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah. And then they show through on that side. Super fun.
Very
Uh,
cool. Well, I can't wait
but
to see what we're going to do in our last class for
I
this.
know I was going to uh it's at the end of the month, so we have some time. And since we've kind of gone over a lot of the different products individually now, I also wanted to open that up a little bit to um, if you have any techniques you'd like to learn that's outside of the scope of the supplies that came in the box or expanding on them a little bit, and we can play with that. But if not, I'll just kind of do my own thing. But I do have enough time to take in some requests for the last live stream if anyone was looking to learn anything in particular. So, um,
That'd be
uh,
something cool to post on the mix group, maybe
yeah,
like a little poll.
I'll definitely post on the mixed group and
Nice.
see if anybody has anything they've been stuck on or just curious about. So let me go back to my little plant page here.
Awesome. Yay.
Yay.
Okay, well, we're pretty much at time. If anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your virtual hand. turn your camera on, let me know so I can call on you. In the meantime, I do want to make one quick ArtSnacks announcement. Um, Most of you know, if you are a frequent shopper, we had a sale, the blind date with the box sale, that started February 1st. As of today, we sold out completely of blind date
What?
boxes. We had a ton, and then the last one sold out. The doodle date sold out at like 3 p.m. today. So I just want to give everyone a heads up. Right after this live stream, we're launching a new promotion where if you spend $25 in the ArtSnacks shop, you get a free small Plum Chester sketchbook. So
I
uh,
just saw that go up right before that. I saw it and I was like, what is this? I got really excited. I love a plum
yeah,
chester.
yeah. So, and that's just like $25 is like another pad of paper, and then you can just drop the Plum Chester in your cart. So you can get to $25 pretty easily. Yeah.
Just the
Oh,
small
thank you.
one. Yep. So it's a 6 inch, just about, I think. So
Yes,
and
it's
it
six
and it
percent.
also can lay flat um as
Yeah.
well, like this book. So, but it's not
Yes.
watercolor, just regular
Yeah,
sketch
I
paper.
don't recommend water soluble stuff going in there,
Yeah.
but
I do
yeah.
experiment with it sometimes in there. Guilty. Yep.
Oh well. Yeah, so that sale is launching now through the 14th. So we are bummed that we ran out of all of those blind date boxes. And yeah, I'm hoping that we can bring it back next year. So it was very stressful this morning when we saw that there was like 5 left and we're like, oh no, what do we do? So unfortunately we don't restock those guys, but next year we'll do some new blind dates. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time and attention, and for being here live. Again, this will be recorded and posted to the mixed group probably tomorrow. Caitlin, I'm going to spotlight you. Any last words?
Um, just if you are making anything with the lesson, make sure I'm Caitlin Conti on Mix. And so you can look up me, and I think you can tag me directly in on Mix if you make any of this stuff. So I'd love to see what you're making, even if it had maybe nothing to do with this lesson. But if you watch this and you just want to show me what you've been up to in your sketchbook, I'd love to see.
Yay. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Caitlin, thanks for your time, and we'll see you all later. Bye.